Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone, and this week's book of the week is Play Bigger, How Pirates, Dreamers, and Innovators Create and Dominate Markets by Dave Peterson, Christopher Lockheed, and Kevin Maney. Now, these gentlemen have formed the Silicon Valley advisory group Play Bigger, and they came up with a fantastic framework and approach to essentially how a variety of startups, well, startups no longer, but Airbnb, Amazon, Facebook, how these come to dominate the market. And the one thing that they've noticed is that winning the game today isn't about playing the game the old way. It's about defining and creating a new game. And part of that is category design and creation. Now, if you want to create a legendary company, you have to create a legendary category and dominate it. And if you unfortunately think that all you got to do is create a really amazing product, well, you're unfortunately going to lose. But that's okay. That's why you're watching this video, because I'm going to show you the specific framework to get you started in terms of discovering and designing a category thanks to this book. Now, I first heard about this book when I read and actually did a Mindloom book review on another fantastic book. Let me get it. And that was Bruce Cleveland's Traversing the Traction Gap. Now, Bruce is a partner over at Wildcat Venture Partners, a really exciting and new VC firm here in the Valley. And he wrote this book essentially talking about why do so many startups fail between the seed round startup phase to later on where they scale. There's a period where 90% of them actually fail, and it comes down to getting traction. Now, as he outlines in this fantastic book, which every startup founder should have, about what it takes to gain traction, he talks about this concept of category creation, and he specifically references this book. Now, I have to mindloom this just because that's the whole point of the show, but yes, this book is actually a companion to another book, and if anything, Bruce was inspired to write a sequel to this other book. Let me get that one. So, Jeff Moore, who is the famous author who wrote Crossing the Chasm, is actually an advisor over at Wildcat Ventures. Bruce was really inspired by Jeff's framework, specifically around the technology adoption curve and the chasm, and felt that he wanted to make a compendium to it, or essentially a companion. So these two really go well together. And of course, it's spoken about in Crossing the Chasm as to a startup finding a beachhead to attack, specifically what specific niche market are you going to go and expand into. Bruce takes that concept and really starts to define it in terms of how startups can get traction, and thus discovers Play Bigger. And when Bruce discovered this book and the Play Bigger advisory group, he starts introducing this concept of category formation, and that's what led me to buy this book. So now that you know the backstory, let's get right into it. Now, when it comes to creating a company, there are two specific areas that a lot of people in Silicon Valley and the startup world really focus on. Either you know how to build something or you know how to sell and market it. Now, the problem with each of these is that when you focus so much on developing a product, the problem is not everybody knows about it, and even though it might be the best solution out there, nobody knows about it. Who's going to buy it? On the other side, if you focus purely just on selling and marketing something, sure, there's of course issues with, is the product the best solution? But if you don't know where and how to sell, and more specifically, what exactly the category that you're selling in is, then that leaves a lot of money on the table. So what's the happy medium that everybody should aim for? Well, the happy medium is category creation, and here's the reason why. If you think about the customer's mind, or really anybody's mind, every product, every problem, every solution kind of fits more or less into a category. You may not be aware of it, but that's true. Your brain finds these shortcuts to, go and get stuff. Look, if I talk about a tomato sauce that you really want to put on a hamburger, where does your mind go? It's ketchup, that's Heinz, right? Everybody's mind goes there because that's the category that this very old company has come to dominate. Yet, if I tell you something like streaming movies, there's many streaming movie apps out there. I can name many. But there's one that just popped up in everybody's mind, and that's Netflix, because they defined and own that category. They're the category king. And the way you get there is to design a category, which many people here in Silicon Valley have realized that you cannot leave this up to chance, is that you come up with this category or category king trifecta of focusing on building the company, the product, and the category more or less all at the same time. And the reason why you do that is because the way you develop the product, the way you sell and market it, right, and the category that you define all come together. You don't do one after the other after the other. It has to be done simultaneously. Now, one thing I love about Play Bigger's agency is that they do a lot of things through data. So look at this one infograph. And if you notice, all of these companies, they're all billion-dollar companies, Facebook, LinkedIn, Amazon, and they are pure category kings, right? And what they did is they focus on that magic triangle of defining their category by building the category, the product, and the company all at the same time. Now, what happens over time is that when a new category is formed, right, there's going to be a spike in companies and competition. But over time, those companies will fizzle out and die as the category king starts to rise in dominance and own more and more market share. Now, before I go into one of the exercises that's outlined in this book on category creation, let me give you a forewarning that I found in the book. It's actually written in there. 10 reasons why you should not buy this book. So if you fall under these 10 reasons, you should probably not buy this book. And yes, just for the record, reason number 10 is if you actually work at SAP, which has a really hilarious footnote in the book. Now, there are a variety of frameworks that come along with this book in terms of category creation, design, the execution of it. How do you get those point of views from the customer? But let's start with the category creation side, which is a real place where everyone should start, and it involves 5 specific steps. So step 1 is the who. Who's going to actually own this? Ideally, this is going to be the founder or the CEO of the company. Now, a lot of times they're not going to have time to do this, right? They might be focused on things. So if you're a head of marketing or a marketing leader or product leader within the company, take it upon yourself to say that you're going to be the one leading this project and make sure that you interface a lot with the founder / CEO, because that's the person who's really going to be setting the vision and, more importantly, delivering that to the market. Now, the second step is really fact finding. And to do this, you have to do a lot of interviews in the company. As a marketer, one of the most important things that you need to learn how to do is to interview people in the most objective way to pull out those pearls and gold nuggets so you can weave together the story and, more importantly, the strategy. And let me go through some of those questions you have to ask. On vision and mission, what is the original market or technology insight that led you to create this company? Very important to ask. Customers, like, who do you envision buying this? A lot of times you would think that this is a simple question, but many times you'll see in a startup that there's a variety of different customers that can buy a certain product, but that's not something you can market. That's not how you own a category. You have to be more specific, and you have to force the people who are answering this question to really dive deeper in terms of who the specific person is. Problem statement. So what's the problem that you're solving? Many times a great product, especially a SaaS product, can solve so many different problems. Okay, so if that's the case, what's the bigger part of this problem that you're solving? For Mark Benioff, when he started Salesforce, of course, Salesforce solves a lot of different problems, but at the end of the day, there was one specific marketing campaign, and this is really what created the whole SaaS industry, was Mark Benioff creating this image saying no software with an X in it, and his whole thing is that this is a company that requires no software, and thus the SaaS industry was born. So of course, there's a variety of these questions, and here's a quick screenshot of what those questions are and those buckets. And as the person who's owning this fact-finding mission, you have to go through each of these buckets, go through these questions, and get the answer, and I would start compiling them. And the more people you talk to, the better. I think what you could possibly do is perhaps interview the founders, maybe people on the leadership and executive team, which is what the book recommends. But I always recommend involving the greater company as a whole, especially if you're a startup. Maybe your company's 10, 20, 30 people. Put together a short survey, right? Maybe not to answer these questions, but have people answer some questions about perhaps the mission and vision of the company. What's the problem the company solves? Because then you'll start to get a gut check as to what each person in the company is thinking, and more importantly, the gaps that exist. Because the most important thing, as detailed by Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, which I put all the way over there, is that marketing is not a job nor a responsibility that's limited only to the marketing department to think up, right? I know marketers, we think we're geniuses and we'd like to do everything, but for a company to really win, marketing has to be a company-wide initiative, something that everybody gets. Just like with selling, there's only one sales department, but everybody in the company sells, whether you're talking to friends or family or a customer. Now, the next part is step 3, which is the workshop. And in the workshop, you're going to define a few things. Again, you get the leadership team together. You start talking about who are the customers, right? What's the problem that they don't know they have or they can't yet solve, right? That's very important. What's the level of awareness of this actual problem? What's the pain? The from and tos, or you can call them the Frodos, which is where are the customers, where are we trying to take them from, and where are we trying to get them to? So if we're trying to get customers from, let's say, a very frustrating, painful process and to a smooth and simple way of doing something, those things have to be defined. Because every product, every service, every startup is essentially a vehicle to take somebody from where they are today with a problem, a pain point, an obstacle, and you're trying to get them to a specific destination. Now, when it comes to defining the two, that also introduces what's the new thing, like what is this new thing that's going to help them? What's so revolutionary about it? Step 4 is to start creating category names. You start combining like 2-word category names, 3-word category names. Essentially, after going through this with leadership team, you start combining different ideas as to, okay, if this is who our customers are, here's the problem that they have, where we're trying to take them from and to, and the new thing that we're doing that with, what's the category we're creating? And this is where you start getting really creative in terms of coming up with all kinds of ideas. Again, to come to a really good idea, you have to have a lot of shitty, bad ideas first. So this is where you want to empower people to just blurt out, the ideas. And the best thing I would say, and I really got this idea from Ray Dalio when it comes to how he surveys his company, sometimes doing this in a group out loud, not everybody's going to be, not everybody's extroverted. Right? What I would recommend is have people write these things down on a Post-it note. Take the Post-it note and put them up on a wall, so that way people feel a little bit less pressure, in front of their peers. And again, because we're remote and you're doing things all digitally, what you could do is set up a Zoom and have people direct message you these ideas and you write them down. And finally, you're going to essentially package the work, right? And you're going to create one specific document after you go through all this. And that document's going to have category landscape, meaning the category that you create and what does it look like and where it fits. The category ecosystem, which is going to show the customers, your competitors, the developers, suppliers, everything that goes along with that category ecosystem. The Frodos, or the froms and to journeys that you want your customers to take. The category name and description, the final version. The case for the new category, essentially, you're writing out the why. Like, why does the world need this new category? And an early draft game plan. And one thing I do recommend, along with this book, go ahead and get Bruce's book as well, because what I like is that Bruce, as a VC, took a very interesting approach of framing this in an interesting way. He's also an engineer, so it's an engineer's approach to a marketer's ideas. And the thing that I like is that he actually lists out, you can go to page 72, he lists out a case study of how he used this framework. He actually goes through the process of how he designed a specific category for one of his startups, including the from and to journeys, the 2-word, 3-word, and 4-word combinations for the categories, and then what they ended up landing on. So it's just a fantastic book. Plus, if you want to pitch him a startup, you better read this book first. So that's the book of the week. Definitely go out and get it, especially if you're a marketer, if you're a founder. I think it's a fantastic book to go through. Check out Play Bigger's website. They have some fantastic resources, free resources on there to help you go through this. So that's the book of the week. Happy Wisdom Wednesday. And as always, stay safe, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.